This video is a bit different, not just because we have a very special car, but because I'm presenting in English. But before we get on with the video, let's have our normal introduction in Bahasa Malaysia. Assalamualaikum semua, apa khabar? Kami bersama Honda S2000 hari ini. Ya, kereta sahabat kami, Ivan Kong. Dan ada sikit istimewa sikit lah hari ini. Sebab video ini saya dah janjikan kepada sebilangan daripada para penonton yang saya akan sampaikan dalam bahasa Inggeris. Jadi, dengan izin, ladies and gentlemen, a 1999 model year S2000. Yes, it was the first production year model, and somehow this particular car found its way to Malaysia. Well, a lot of JDM cars, very special Japan domestic model cars, tend to make their way to Malaysia even in the first year, despite strict import, not to say restrictions, but regulations require heavy import duties for new cars. So this was officially brought in as a grey import, as a so-called used car registered in Japan. Now this car is a little bit different. As you can see here, this is glass. The owner made a conversion. It was, originally it was just plastic, like stretchy plastic that gets a little bit murky after a while. I remember this car was very close to heart because a close friend of mine had one. He was a pilot. I was in college. We were the same age, but he was earning the big bucks very early on. So he had very little in terms of responsibilities. So he spent all his money in fast cars. Of course, yours truly had a lot to do egging him on to buy these fantastic cars that I myself can enjoy too. So this car played an integral part in the formative years of my automotive career, or fledgling career at that time. I was just about done with college and toying with the idea of joining a car magazine set up by some senior college friends. And yeah, this was one of the cars that made up my decision to pursue this career. And I started with a tuner or modified car magazine, and pouring into the specifications and engineering of this car made me want to learn more and understand more about what goes on into making a car from the manufacturer's point of view. Up to that point, I was more interested in, wheels, suspension, engine mods and stuff like that. So this car was particularly interesting because in the height of the mid to late 90s, the Japanese car makers, they were working very closely with the aftermarket, the tuners like a Spoon, Mugen, Toda and the rest. So they made cars that were perfectly tunable in the aftermarket. So you could get all sorts of off-the-shelf performance parts to enhance the car. And when I got into the industry, I found out that the manufacturers actually let in the tuners on their detailed, not to say drawings, but detailed design and certain technological information that allows the tuners to start working on their tune-up parts way before the car was actually launched. So the moment the car hits the market, you've got this whole wide range of aftermarket stuff, not just for exterior body parts, but also for the engine, the transmission and such. This car has lots of aluminum parts. My memory is a bit foggy, but if not mistaken, this is aluminum. So the wings, and it sits on a very interesting high-rise X-bone chassis. So there's a backbone like a Lotus Elise. That's why the center tunnel is so tall, as you can see here. The center tunnel is so tall because the actual integral structural part of the chassis runs through there, so that you have a bit lower sills. easy for you to get in and out of, despite it being a two-seater convertible. So convertible cars usually they have during this era they had quite high seals to make sure that the chassis is being braced. So the backbone goes through there, and then it splits at the front to where the front suspension mounts, and also to the rear where the rear suspension mounts. But typically Japanese, the packaging is spot on. It's a front mid-engine car, because as you can see, the engine is pushed so far back that the front of the engine is actually behind the front wheel center line. Look at that. Yeah, so it's got a supposedly perfect 50-50 weight distribution with a foldable roof that operates in just 6 seconds. This is a 20-year-old car, right? And it's in mint condition. I don't want to, fold the top up and down, but all you need to do is just to unlatch this and that one, 2 latches, and then it's just electrically operated but via a button there. Yeah, that one, just hold it down. And yeah, that's a bit odd. It didn't used to have that glass screen there. So at the back here, to open the boot, it's got a fairly usable boot, although the interior is still a little bit cramped for Europeans or Americans. So you press this button there, yep, and supposedly you can fit a golf bag in here. Supposedly, well, I guess you could if you really wanted to. Yeah, because see, it's a lot of space there. That's a spare wheel. There's a space saver. Yep. Let's have a look back at the engine. Now this has to be the heart and soul of the car. Well, this engine's been refurbished. The cylinder head's been refurbished. So F20C is the model name. 2-liter 4-cylinder, pushing out for the JDM market 250 PS. 250 PS from a 2-liter. That's 125 PS per liter, the highest output per liter at the time. Even now, today, it's so hard to find. Can anyone name it, please? Can anyone help me? Put in the comments below. Name us a current naturally aspirated engine without turbo, without superchargers, that outputs 125 horsepower per liter, and it screams to 9,000 rpm. 9,000 rpm. I remember when I was at the tuner magazine, so we had guests from Novitec, the aftermarket tuner from from Italy, or was it Germany? I can't remember. Novitec, but they do a lot of Fiat and Alfas. Novitec came, and my friend brought his car, and they were amazed to see that. Let's get the car started here. That's the key. Classic, yeah. It's actually metal in the middle. That's it. All right, so put it in here, turn it past the on button, and engine start. So in those days, you don't need to press the brakes or the clutch. You can just turn it on. So the engine start button is essentially just the last cog of the last turn of the key. So to turn it off, you don't press this again. It's just like cranking the car again. So to turn it off, you just twist it around. So look at that digital display. I remember the Honda Prelude before it had a digital display of sorts, but this one, look at that. It's got a really light flywheel, which makes getting off the line smoothly and without revs quite tricky. But as you can see, after 20 years, there is some fade, yeah, some discoloration, but it's still legible. And this is essential because cars from Japan at the time had a 180 km/h limiter, and because the meters tend to read or overread, so 180 km/h on the meter translates to sometimes just 165, barely 170 kilometers per hour. So that won't do, yeah. So with the speed cut removed, yeah, the speed cut removed with one of these gadgets, we can go up to, I've seen about 230-ish kilometers per hour. Some say can really take it up to 240, but I couldn't quite get it to 240, even with the Japan domestic market spec. Look at this, simple. That's just aircon. And over this side, it's for the radio, audio control. That's it, yeah. And this is actually, as you can see here, curved to face the driver, and this is curved to face the driver too. There's absolutely nothing there for the passenger except for this compartment here, which is hidden. Look at that. It just likes to hide stuff to make it look even simpler than it is. So yeah, if I'm not mistaken, when it came in 1999, 2000, it came with something that looks like this, with this, yeah, they provided this too. So this one's for the passenger, I guess. Alright, I can't remember if there was a CD changer stuck somewhere in the boot. I can't quite recall, but this particular unit, I'll have to ask Ivan later, I guess. Meeting him right after this little drive I'm taking up to Genting Highlands. Now the seats here, look at that, it's aged quite well for a 20-year-old car, and it still looks fresh. And overall the build quality is excellent, typical Honda, yeah. I remember when the car was new, we had torrential rain and there was no problem of leaks at all, nothing. We had long trips and there was no leaks. Refinement is not the best though. Yeah, it's got a very smooth engine, but smooth revving engine, but at low revs, before the VTEC kicks in at about 6,000, at low revs it can sound a bit coarse, a bit gruff, a little bit of a buzz, yeah. But there's still the apparent zinginess to it. And once you get past 6,500, 7,000 RPM, it just screams and goes, and you can hardly believe it that you're still not at the rev limiter. And this thing is such a beauty. Look at that. That's a metal knob that sprouts up from the tall center tunnel, and it's just perfectly placed. Look at the short throw. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it. And to go to reverse, you just press it down. It's a bit, yeah, it needs a bit of force. Press it down and into reverse. Yeah, that's reverse. Amazing. Look at the pedal. The pedal box is slightly offset to the right in right-hand drive cars, but it's all quite even. Look at that. The clutch is slightly taller than the brakes, which is then slightly taller than the throttle, but it works out perfectly. Look at that. And somehow, being a Honda, the weights here, it doesn't feel so hefty. It's got a lightness of touch, yet still fairly accurate in its feedback and its motion, its movement. So yeah, you're not left guessing how much brakes you need to apply, how much clutch you need to apply, but it's all a bit light for a sports car, you think. Then again, Honda, starting from the NSX, made very drivable sports cars. The steering is a bit odd though. It's one of the early electric power steerings, so it's not hydraulic. At the same time, it's not the lightest though. So the pedals may be a bit light, even the clutch, but the steering is a little bit hefty, at least from the straight ahead. So yeah, it takes a little bit of shove to get it past the straight ahead, but after that it lightens up a bit as you put in more lock, and there's not much feel to it. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of stiction and it's not the most feelsome of steering. However, this car is fine at the limit. Yeah, the steering comes alive at the very limit when you're starting to slip and slide. Let's get out and tell you more about that. So the powertrain, the engine and transmission are just off the charts, top of the world class, award winning in many different markets, right? People could not say enough nice things about it. Can't praise them enough. However, the overall chassis, the overall driving experience, well, that left people a little bit wanting, especially for the early cars, yeah, then early 99, 2000, up to about 2004, 5 cars. Because you see, the Japanese, right, especially Honda, they made cars at that time like the Civic Type R EK9, uh, which was a bit unlike the Integra Type R at that time. So the EK9, it was brutally fast and superbly efficient and effective. You can see what do you call it? That initial D movie. Yeah, this car was in that too. Not the movie, the series, the cartoon series. This car was in that too. The EK9 was legendary. So those cars were really fast, really capable, but not that enjoyable to drive. So with a sports car like this, supposedly open top or motor ring, 50-50 weight distribution, front engine, rear wheel drive, you would want a pure driving experience, a little bit like the Lotus or even the Boxster, the Porsche Boxster of the time. But somehow, as capable as it was, it just didn't feel altogether. The driving experience, it was a bit spiky. There was a lot of movement, a lot of motion in the car, a lot of pitching and diving, and a bit of roll, and you're not quite sure how much grip you have left. Not that it was, using such sticky tires. Like this car is on the 17-inch, 235 at the front, 245 at the back. It's got semi-slicks. But when it first came out, it was just 205, 225, if I'm not mistaken. Then it was 16 inches. Then my friend changed it to 215, 245s at the back. 17 inches. Yeah, it helped a bit, but also made things worse a little bit, because then you have, with more grip, you have even more rolling around. So yeah, it was kind of made for the aftermarket. It's perfectly tunable though. Like for example, the front camber. Imagine the front camber you can adjust with just a wrench or a screw, I can't remember, but it was easily adjustable. You didn't have to put in camber shims or pump the camber out or whatnot. No, it was perfectly customizable. So yeah, if you were a tinkerer, you would be able to get the best out of the car. As it was off the showroom floor, it was a bit of a mixed bag. But again, the engine and transmission is undeniably the heart and soul of the car. And Honda always said they were an engine company. Yeah, I think they tried to emulate Ferrari. It's like we are an engine company. We make the car around it just to put the engine in it, something to that effect. So after the 2000s, coming up to the 2010s, Honda started to have a little bit of a different approach, I think. But up to 2000, it was really engine first. Yes, again, the car was capable. It could get a very good lap time on track. I took this car in early 2000 to the racetrack in Sepang circuit, and amazingly, it worked much better there. Even right on the limit, it worked much better there. It was a bit more lucid, more transparent. You're not left guessing where the grip is going to end, and we were sliding and drifting, and it was fantastic. Then I realized that in Japan the roads are so smooth. So because of that, yeah, it was not tuned for the lumpy, potholed roads of the rest of the world, especially in Malaysia. Having said that, they did start tweaking the car after 2004, 2005, all the way up to the end of production in 2009 or 2010. So those cars, I've been told, were much better sorted. They got better dampers and spring rates that matched better. But on the whole, it was easy enough to make the car work. And look at this picture. This was endurance race in Sepang, 12 hours, which I participated in a Lotus Exige Cup. Yeah, Lotus Exige 240 Cup at the time. And the following year, I participated in, I drove Lotus 211, the one with no roof. So those were running Toyota engines, and we had Keiichi Tsuchiya, the Drift King of Best Motoring fame, come with his, was it a Spoon Civic? No, Spoon was another team. He was with the JS Racing team. Yeah, there's a video, I'll put the link below. There's a video from Best Motoring, covering his race in Malaysia in 2007-2008. Yeah, so I was following the car. They were faster than the Exige 240 Cup that was converted to become a race car. We had regulations to comply with, so we couldn't just simply change everything. The car had to pretty much remain standard, as in the chassis, the hard points where the suspensions meet the body, the chassis. You couldn't change that. It was a Group A, like a sports car group, restricted. But it went to show how capable this car was, with pretty much off-the-shelf items and an engine that was not so much more powerful than the production engine because of the requirements of endurance racing. They would beat my 240 Cup. So in 2008, I was driving the 211. They would still beat our time. No, that time we were a bit quicker. Yeah, that time we were a bit quicker. Because, well, unfair advantage. Yeah, the 211 weighs 800 kilograms. So this car, even in race trim, add-on roll cage and stuff like that, and safety equipment, weighed about 1,200 kilograms. The 240 Exige that I was driving only weighed 900 kilograms. Imagine that. And had about the same horsepower. And we were supercharged with a Toyota supercharged engine, pumping out about 260 horsepower. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, the car was super effective. And it goes to show the fundamentals of the car were right, but the Japanese at that time still hadn't figured out the to fine-tune the sensations of driving, you know. What makes a car really enjoyable to drive does not necessarily equate to ultimate G-force or braking ability or cornering ability. So it's also got to do with the feel, the feedback, you know, and how it makes you feel, how the car talks to you. So on that front, yeah, the Japanese had some catching up to do with the Europeans. But with this setup, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's got aftermarket tin suspension. Tin. We'll ask Ivan. Let's head back to KL and ask Ivan what he's done with the car.